Hi there. It's me again, Joseph. Hi, how you doing? Before we go any further, um, we're listening to Chris de Burgh. If you've not heard or are not familiar with Chris de Burgh, you should be. He's a sensation in just about everywhere except the United States. Briefly had his 15 minutes of fame here with The Woman in Red and Don't Pay the Ferryman. But he's one of those musical chameleons, kind of a rockish Joe Jackson, and descended from royalty. So hey, you can't go wrong there. Excuse me. I had wanted to talk about action scenes today, and as often is the case, when I begin to think about crafting, all sorts of other stuff comes up. And I realize, oh, I should have mentioned this. I should have mentioned this. So we're going to do more on openings. I know you're happy, aren't you? Well, I think it's important. So there. I had mentioned about establishing as quickly as possible who owns the book, who owns the novel, the story, putting them up front, whether it's a scene, a paragraph, chapter, or a book as a whole. There are other things to consider. And that comes down to voice, or what I would consider voice. And I'm going to be looking at Edgar Rice Burroughs, Catherine Mansfield, and Catcher in the Rye. I forgot the name of the author. Hang on a second, I'll let you know. J.D. Salinger. Wow, amazing I could remember that. Anyway, one of the things you want to do when you're establishing who owns the story is control the viewpoint of the story. And that can be done by establishing the narrative voice right out of the gate. For example, and I'll put these posts underneath I'll put links to these posts underneath the video. Consider the opening to The Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger's classic. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. Tell me that is not established the narrator, the central character, yes, the point of view character, who owns this story, and his voice, his character, his atmosphere, everything about him is in that first opening line. That's an amazing opening line because it establishes so much right out of the gate. If you don't like that voice, you're not going to like the story. If you don't care about that voice, why bother to read it? Because that is the character right there. That gives you his attitude, his beliefs, his, metaphysic. Tremendous. Let's go look at Catherine Mansfield. This is something from the collected stories of Catherine Mansfield. Again, I'll put the link underneath the video. And Catherine Mansfield is, in my estimation, a goddess of setting and atmosphere. She wrote in the very early 20th century. I know who goes back in that far in history, but you should. You may not like what she writes. Fine. Pay attention to how she writes it, though. That's the important part. That's what you want to pay attention to. So, for example, beginning of Prelude, first sentence of Prelude. There was not an inch of room for Lottie and Kezia in the buggy. Okay. Again, we have the establishment of a third person observer, narrator. So great, we know who owns the story. The narrator does not. We're not going to be going into the character's viewpoints. We're going to be establishing that it's the narrator's viewpoint. Great. And what she says is not an inch of room for. That is a delicious phrase. She doesn't go no room for. It's not an inch of room for, because that tells us a great deal about the characters of Lottie and Kezia. The fact that they're in a buggy tells us also quite a bit. The names, Lottie and Kezia, you're not going to hear those names nowadays. So we know we're back in a period, back in a time, back in a way. Again, establishing the voice of the narrator, who's in control, the atmosphere, setting, boom. Wonderful, really, really powerful. The last thing that I want to look at is Edgar Rice Burroughs. No, really, Edgar Rice Burroughs. And let's see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. This is the opening paragraph to the first Tarzan novel, Tarzan of the Apes. Whatever you may think about Edgar Rice Burroughs' misogynistic ways of writing, that was the era. Pay attention to how he does what he does. Learn craft. I recently reread, for I forget how many times, Tarzan of the Apes, and really was taken by his craft, how he establishes the narrative voice, how he takes control of the story and lets the reader know who's in control and what's going to happen. Here it is. I had this story from one who had no business to tell it to me or to any other. I may credit the seductive influence of an old vintage upon the narrator for the beginning of it, and my own skeptical incredulity during the days that followed for the balance of the strange tale. So we know right there that the narrator, the author, is on the reader's side. I don't believe it either. I think this is bullshit. Who the fuck thinks this way? You really believe this kind of crap? Great. So right out of the gate, Burroughs has established that the narrator is the reader's ally. Amazing. Amazing that you can do that. One of the other things is I had this story from one who had no business to tell it to me or any other. This is a secret. This is a private thing. I shouldn't really be telling you this, but I'm going to let you in on the secret. Great. He's taking you into his confidence. Not only has he established that I don't believe this stuff either, he's also, I'm going to take you in. Come on, I could tell you something. This is great. One of the best ways you can establish rapport between reader and narrator is to gain or establish that mark of confidence. Come on, I'm going to tell you something. This is great. And everybody loves a secret. Everybody loves a secret story. My own skeptical incredulity during the days that follow. Again, I don't believe it. So he's established the voice. He's established the story is going to be told in third person, limited omniscient, not quite omniscient, not really there. He doesn't get inside the heads of the characters. He may talk about what they're probably thinking, what they're probably going through, he definitely knows what they're experiencing. Tarzan fought with Bolgani, a bull gorilla. Something I've been just hankering to do. No kidding. So recognize when you're reading a story, and that's probably something else I should get into, how to read like an author. When you're reading a story, recognize the crafting that goes in. Some crafting will suck. And I still read books whose crafting sucks, so I can learn how not to do it. I can say, wow, not going to do that. That's no good. But read through things. When a piece of writing gets you and you've lost track of the fact that you're reading it, go back, take a moment to go back. What happened? How did I get so pulled in? Let me share an anecdote. My book of the Wounded Healers is, Dear God, We Hope, coming out the end of this month, November 2024. And one of the big kudos to me was when my editor contacted me and said it's going to take longer to edit because she keeps on stopping being an editor so she can just read the story and enjoy it. When your writing is so powerful that your editing team, and this is a very competent editor, and it's a very good editor, I recommend it to people, stops being an editor because she's so enjoying and so engaged by the story, you've got it. That's the kind of power you want to write with. Not to say that I'm a great, phenomenal writer. I think I'm pretty good, but I have an ego. So that's what you want to do. Okay? Maybe next time we'll get into action scenes, or we'll get into reading like an author. Wouldn't that be cool? Thanks a lot. Let me see if I can find the stop recording button. We find Zoom first. Oh, there it is. Okay. Stop recording.